Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dungeon Learner's Guide. Today we've got another of our daily Pride Month decks. This is deck number 21 and it's titled A Question for the Council. And if you haven't seen this show before, what we're doing is building a commander deck for Magic the Gathering using two non-partner commanders, working with a budget of $100 or less, and using this as a way to celebrate the diversity of the LGBTQ+ community for all of June. So starting off with our commanders for today, we obviously are going to have a pair that work well together. We have Taborax, Hope's Demise, and Aura Skyclave Hierophant. So Taborax is 2 and a black for a 2/2 legendary creature demon cleric. It's got flying, and it has lifelink as long as it has 5 or more +1/+1 counters on it. Then, whenever another non-token creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Taborax, and if that creature was a cleric, you may draw a card. If you do, you lose a life. And their partner for today is Aura, which is 2 white-black for a 3/3 legendary creature core cleric. He's got lifelink, and whenever Aura or another cleric you control dies, return target cleric card with lesser converted mana cost from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, as you may be able to tell, both of these cards care about clerics. Both of them kind of care about life gain. One of them has lifelink. One of them can get lifelink. So there's a lot of intermixing synergies today. But let's break down some of our themes and try to figure out what exactly works for this deck. So starting off, we of course have clerics. There's a lot of great clerics in Magic, especially in black and white, so being able to put together a bunch of clerics that work well together is very easy for this deck. And a good example of some tying synergies is Shadowrite Priest, which is 1 and a black for a 2/2 human cleric. Other clerics you control get +1/+1. Then you can pay 3 black and sacrifice another cleric to search your library for a black creature card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. This is a very effective Lord-like creature, giving everything +1/+1 because it comes down at 2 mana, but it also plays well in the long game, allowing us to sacrifice our clerics to get something else to the battlefield. And then with Aura, we're able to get clerics from the graveyard back into play when things die, and Taborax cares when things die, so Shadowrite Priest really does everything we want it to be doing. Moving on to our second theme of the deck, this one is life gain. And to that end, we have Cleric of Life's Bond, which is a white and a black for a 2/2 vampire cleric. Whenever another cleric enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. And whenever you gain life for the first time each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Cleric of Life's Bond. There are a lot of creatures that are clerics and care about when a creature enters to gain life, and there's also a lot of characters in Magic that specifically care about gaining life and then getting +1/+1 counters. Cleric of Life's Bond, one of those characters. So being able to gain life, put counters on stuff, means we can keep producing threats, and then eventually put ourselves in a position where our life is too high for our opponents to deal with, our creatures are too big, and even if they go to board wipe, we'll probably just get everything back with Aura anyway, so it puts our opponents in a really difficult position. And then finally, we get to our third theme of the deck, this one being sacrifice. And a good example of that is Krav the Unredeemed, which is 4 and a black for a 3/3 legendary creature demon, and they do partner with Regna the Redeemer, who is also in here. But you can pay a black and sacrifice X creatures, and target player draws X cards and gains X life, put X +1/+1 counters on Krav the Unredeemed. This is a very powerful ability because it can be activated for just a single black mana to sacrifice 5-10 creatures maybe, and then if we're sacrificing 10 creatures, we get to draw 10 cards, gain 10 life, put 10 counters on Krav, trigger everything else that's going on our board, probably trigger Aura to get a bunch of things back out of our graveyard, and then we can just kind of repeat this process over and over, eventually outvaluing our opponents to win the game. That, though, is the end of our themes for today, and the next thing we're going to have to do is take a look at some key cards in this deck. And these are cards that really work with what we're trying to do, and in a lot of cases are the most valuable cards in the deck. So starting off with our first key card, we have Solemn Doom Guide. And Solemn Doom Guide is 3 black for a 4/5 Tiefling Cleric. It has flying, and each creature card in your graveyard that's a cleric, rogue, warrior, and or wizard has unearth for 1 black. So we can pay 1 black and return that card to the battlefield. It'll gain haste, and then we have to exile it at the beginning of the next end step. So that is obviously not ideal. We don't want to just one-shot use our creatures because we have plenty of ways to get them back out of the graveyard. But being able to kind of mass reanimate our graveyard at any moment is incredibly powerful, and giving them all haste can allow us to kind of win out of nowhere. And that's a big part of what we want to do with this deck, is just generate value until we can overwhelm our opponents with said value. Moving on to our next key card, we have Plumb the Forbidden, which is 1 black for an instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may sacrifice 1 or more creatures. When you do, copy this spell for each creature sacrificed this way. You draw a card and lose a life. So if we cast it without sacrificing any creatures, we just draw 1 card and lose a life. If we sacrifice 1 creature, we get to do it twice. 2 creatures lets us do it 3 times, and so on and so on. This is a great way to, again, trigger Taborax, trigger Aura, get a bunch of creatures back to the graveyard, draw a ton of cards, lose a bunch of life, possibly gain a bunch of life depending on some other effects we have going on, and it really just kind of accentuates what our deck is trying to do. Sacrifice, gain life, draw cards, get creatures back, repeat. And I think Plumb the Forbidden definitely deserves a spot as a key card because of it. Moving on to our final key card, this one is Edgewalker. And Edgewalker is kind of a staple in any cleric deck. It is 1 white-black for a 2/2 cleric. Cleric spells you play cost a white and a black less to play. This effect reduces only the amount of colored mana that you pay. So for example, if we have a cleric who costs exactly 1 white mana, it will now be free to cast. If we have a cleric that costs exactly a white and a black mana, it is free to cast. But if we have a cleric that is like Edgewalker, 1 colorless mana, a white and a black, then it would just be that 1 colorless mana to cast. We cannot reduce the colorless mana. It's still, though, incredibly powerful. The ability to reduce all of our spells essentially by 2 mana is one of the best forms of ramp that you can possibly get. And because a lot of our creatures are very small, just 1 or 2 mana, being able to reduce that either to 1 or to free is very powerful and allows us some really explosive turns. That, though, is the end of our key cards for today. So the next thing we're going to do is take a look at some cool interactions in the deck, and these are cards that really synergize with what we're trying to do, but at the same time are kind of just fun cards that I want to highlight. So, our first cool interaction is between Doomed Necromancer and Disciple of the Sun. Doomed Necromancer, 2 black for a 2/2 human cleric mercenary. You can pay a black, tap it, and sacrifice it to return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Then, Disciple of the Sun is 4 white for a 3/3 human cleric. It's got lifelink, and when it enters the battlefield, return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to your hand. So what this allows us to do is essentially play the Doomed Necromancer. We can activate its ability to get back Disciple of the Sun, which will then come into play and return the Doomed Necromancer to our hand, allowing us to repeat this process for as long as we have mana and time available to activate it. Now, it's not infinite by any means. You still do need to recast the Necromancer and you don't have haste, but it's still powerful enough to just loop a couple of effects, and looping effects on cards that are 5 and 3 mana with Taborax and Aura means that we are very quickly going to grow Taborax into a threat and very quickly loop creatures in and out of our graveyard with Aura. Moving on to our second cool interaction, we have Pitiless Carnage and Living Death. So Pitiless Carnage, 3 black for a sorcery, sacrifice any number of permanents you control, then draw that many cards, and it has plot for 1 black, so we can pay 1 black, exile it from our hand face up, and then on a future turn we can cast it without paying its mana cost. Living Death is 3 black black for a sorcery. Each player exiles all creature cards from their graveyard, then sacrifices all creatures they control, then puts all cards they exiled this way onto the battlefield. The way that we can make this work is if we want to spend full price, we can spend 9 mana on this, but if we plot Pitiless Carnage first, then on the turn we cast Living Death, we can cast Pitiless Carnage first, sacrifice all of our creatures, draw that many cards, and then we can Living Death to return all of our creatures from the graveyard to the battlefield, essentially letting us just draw a card for each creature we control, and then also get all their ETBs again. While our opponents are also going to be swapping their graveyards and their boards, meaning they might lose out on some great cards, they might not be prepared for it, they might not even have a graveyard at all. So this definitely puts us ahead of the rest of the table, especially because we control when and how it happens. That, though, brings us to the very end of our deck tech for today, and that is the price of the deck. So today, our total deck price is $83.98, with the most expensive card being Rot Lung Reanimator at a massive $12.03, and that is for a 2 and a black 2/2 zombie cleric. Whenever Rot Lung Reanimator or another cleric is put into a graveyard from play, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token into play. This is a tremendous source of value when it comes to generating tokens in this deck, because whenever our clerics die, which is going to be pretty often if we're being honest, we get to just replace them with zombies and then probably still grow Tabaraks and get our creatures back with aura and set ourselves up for a massive Living Death and all of these different things while still putting bodies on the board. So Rot Lung Reanimator is definitely worth the $12, and I'm very happy we were able to squeeze it into the deck today. That, though, is the end of our deck tech for today, so thank you all so much to everybody for watching. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, please do let me know down in the comments below. I love hearing people's thoughts on all of these decks. And of course, as always, if you have not already, I'd love it if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to go a little bit above and beyond, you can also find us over on Patreon, patreon.com/dungeonlearnersguide, and right here on YouTube as a channel member. So a shout out to our current patrons and channel members, and a massive thank you to everyone once again for watching the video today. I hope you all have a wonderful Pride Month, and I will see you all on the other side of the Dungeon Learner's Guide.